Thank you for doing this.
Thanks
Tyler.
for having
I
me.
was just looking through your YouTube numbers, which I don't normally ever do that with anybody, but you're huge. I didn't realize how big you were.
You're flattering me, yeah.
Well, it's real. Well, you're a lot bigger than me, I'll tell you that.
We're
So, a lot bigger. So, I'm amazed and impressed. So before we get into how you, I think, kind of accidentally stepped into this controversy, where are you from? How'd you start doing this?
I'm from Modesto, California. I started doing this.
You say that with such a verve and relish.
Yeah, meth, auto theft, and meth, theft, and
farming,
auto theft. Farming, almonds, a small agricultural town in the Central Valley of California.
For people who are not familiar with California ag, what's an almond?
I think it's an almond that has yet to fall from the tree. I actually couldn't be bothered. I'm not fully certain.
It's an L-less almond. So you're from Modesto.
Shake the L out of it, whatever the hell it is, right? I'm from Modesto, California. I went to college for 3 months, dropped out. I was doing YouTube full time, sort of accidentally walked into the field of investigative or
How many
journalism.
kids in your class at UCLA were doing YouTube, quote, full time? Was that like
no.
okay?
Not that I'm aware of.
That was not a major?
No, that was not a trendy thing to do.
How'd you decide to do that?
I don't know. I just didn't want to go to college. I wanted to get out of there at any cost.
God bless you.
So I was charging those Lime scooters and then filming videos, and then I just dropped out and left forever.
How long did it take you to support yourself or feel like you were had a real job doing this?
I think about a month into it. I had enough money to subsist. Yeah.
Oh, immediately?
Yeah, pretty immediately.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Doing what kind of videos?
Goofy stuff, Tucker. All sorts of stuff. I sold Big Chungus to GameStop, and here I am in front of Tucker Carlson. So,
you do anything you regret?
No.
Good.
No.
So you don't. I was young. I needed the money. There's nothing. like that in your background.
I wasn't shaking on a stripper pole.
That was kind of what I was asking.
Yeah.
So then, how did you wind up in this variety of YouTube, like basically doing journalism? Well, doing journalism.
Yeah, we were doing a lot of goofy stuff. One day we saw what happened in East Palestine, Ohio, I think about 3.5 years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
There was a train derailment. A bunch of toxic chemicals had leached into the water supply from what I remember. And there was kind of a media blackout at the time. And I saw what happened on TikTok. And I was like, what if we just brought our camera there and asked people questions?
Where were you?
In Austin, Texas at the time. So we drove, I think, into Ohio. And it just started filming people and asking questions and trying to figure out what was going on. And then it sort of evolved into whatever we do now, which comprises of basically amateur documentaries, investigative journalism.
Wait, so you just, you don't work for anyone but you?
No, I'm fully independent, self-funded, always have been.
No investors of any kind.
Zero investment.
Just you and a couple other people.
Me and 4 or 5 people behind the scenes putting these videos out.
And you're watching TikTok at your place in Austin and you see there's a train derailment in Ohio. Correct. So you get in the truck and just drive to Ohio?
Exactly. Yeah.
That's the whole thing.
I thought it'd be an interesting video. I thought it'd be informative. And we're trying to sort of mature what we were doing on YouTube, make it a little more serious because I was becoming, 22 years old. I was like, I don't want to do goofy nonsense for my entire life. What if we did something actually useful? So we showed up and people really resonated with it. It was informative and valuable. And there wasn't a ton of news crew there at the time. It was somewhat irrelevant in the news ecosystem. But it was fascinating to me, so we showed up.
I remember your video. So that was it. No one assigned it to you. You're just scrolling through TikTok and you saw
exactly.
it. Just drive there.
Yeah.
I think because I'm so much older and have been in the formal media my whole life, it's just amazing that that's how it starts.
Yeah, weird, right?
Well, great. Actually,
it worked.
This is kind of this is what they told us the internet was going to be.
Yeah.
Before it became like all porn and bots and sports gambling, like. Sure. We were going to have citizen journalists and people would find out the truth because you couldn't mediate it because it was, live
and
on
Elon
camera.
Musk sort of put a name to that idea of citizen journalists, for me at least. I'd never even heard the term. I didn't even know what we were doing was journalism, so to speak. But I feel like that's what it was and what it became.
So when you got to East Palestine, what'd you do? Like, what do you do?
We just asked people what was going on, tried to gain access into some of these areas that were closed off, asking these federal agents what was going on, and just tried to sort of paint a picture for what the media sort of failed to present to the broader American audience.
I love that.
Yeah. No, it was interesting.
It's like the coolest thing you could do.
Yeah.
So you just see people standing on the side of the road and say, hey, can I talk to you?
What's going on here?
But you never got a degree in journalism from Columbia?
No, I don't have a degree.
So how did you know how to do that?
Because we were doing it for sillier stuff prior to this. I'm
just making fun of the absurd idea.
Yeah. So I'll tell you how we got it. I was driving these vehicles that looked like Minecraft vehicles across America, and we would go to gas stations and always have these funny interviews with random people at gas stations. And we had this interview with a guy who was telling us about banging his cousin in Alabama. And I was like, what if we took the beauty of what that moment was and just brought it to relevant, important topics in day-to-day life? So we did that. We took this gas station interview concept and sort of brought it over to actually important topics in our everyday life. So here we are. Yeah.
You make the video on East Palestine, and if I saw it, it must have been
off,
big.
and I was like, what if we just keep doing more of this?
Did it get a lot of views?
It did, yeah.
How
People
many?
were very, like 3 or 4 million views.
Wow.
Yeah.
At 22.
I think so, yeah.
Amazing.
But for us, it was a validation that this is something people can use, and it's informative, and it fills in sort of where the mainstream media is not interested in.
Well, it's objectively validation of that. I mean, that's exactly what it is.
Yep.
And it also says something good about the country, that people want to know what's happening inside their borders. Yeah. So then you just pivoted right then and decided to do more news?
Yeah, we did a variety of news topics to interesting cultural communities, like hard to access communities, like the pedophile village in Florida.
What?
We went over there and started interviewing a bunch of pedophiles, asked them how they ended up there, to white supremacists in Arkansas, to black supremacists in Harlem, New York. So just a broad range of interesting people, places, and things, from political to cultural to just wacky stuff.
What drove you?
Drove me?
Yeah. What was your motive?
Oh, just curiosity.
Yeah.
I thought I was good at it. So let's go for it.
That's the right motive right there.
Yeah.
So then you started doing, when I first became aware of you, you moved from like the full outliers, like the pedophile community. I'd never even heard of that before. And white supremacists in Arkansas.
Miracle Village, they called it.
Miracle Village. It's so dark. White supremacists in Arkansas, black supremacists in Harlem. I've interviewed both those communities 30 years ago. So that everyone knows that exists, but they're really so far out on the fringes of American life. But then you start moving closer to the actual news, like what the rest of the news is talking about.
Yeah.
And you start interviewing Somalis.
Yeah, so I think in December of 2025, we put out a video on Somalis in Minneapolis.
Yes.
Now, keep in mind, to the local news's credit, they've reported on various forms of fraud for years over there.
Yes.
But there's something about their inability to storytell and package those narratives that it just never took off.
There's a talent gap there, yes.
Yeah. And just a media misunderstanding, I think. But long story short—
What does that mean?
They just don't know how to use social media. They're illiterate. Maybe by design or incompetence, I'm not sure. But
what do they get wrong?
I think they report accurately. In fact, many social media guys often cite their reports. I think they just can't synthesize the information to the actual storytelling, to the packaging, and how these platforms like YouTube work. You're figuring it out, though, I see.
I have definitely not figured it out at all. But I think, the ability to tell a story works at dinner. It works on cable television, and it works on YouTube. It's like all kind of the same thing. Can you synthesize? I think that's exactly right. You just take the facts and you put it into an order that you think is accurate. You're just truthful. You're not misrepresenting it, but that makes sense. It's got a narrative structure.
An order of importance too, right?
Exactly. Thank you.
But we've covered tons of topics from all over the country and all over the world. But about in December of 2025, we did a video on Somalis in Minneapolis. A lot of it was focused on more of a demographic shift, more so than fraud. Nick Shirley then puts out a video, I think a couple weeks later, and it really bursts into the mainstream. He covers this daycare fraud, and this is like the biggest talking point in the GOP. I'm sure you saw, right?
Oh, yeah. I live here.
They loved it. It was a perfect story, really. He found these leering centers, all this stuff, this blatant retardation, if you will, of people from Somalia who can't even spell the word learning, whatever. It becomes part of the mainstream conversation about these third worlders absorbing welfare benefits, committing fraud en masse, and everyone hates these people, right?
So most people don't wake up in the morning and decide to feel horrible, exhausted, foggy, disconnected from themselves, but it does happen, and it happens slowly. You're working hard, you're showing up, and then your energy disappears by midday. Your focus is dull, your weight won't move. A lot of people are told that's just getting old. That's what it is, but that's not actually true. For many men and women, these are not personal failures. They are signals tied to your metabolism, your hormones, and nutrient imbalances that go undetected for years. You don't even know you're deficient. And that's why we're happy to partner with Joy and Blokes, a company that was built for people who are all done guessing and ready to figure out what exactly is going on. And that starts with comprehensive lab work and a one-on-one consultation with a licensed clinician. An actual human being explains what's happening inside you and builds a personalized plan, which includes hormone optimization, peptide therapy, targeted supplements. So don't settle. Go to joyandblokes.com/Tucker. Use the code Tucker for 50% off your lab work and 20% off all supplements. That's joyandblokes.com/Tucker. Use the code Tucker. 50% off labs, 20% off supplements. Join Blokes. Get your edge back.
Wait, can I just ask you to back up? You said something so interesting, parenthetically. You said, I approached it as a demographic replacement question. They approached it as a fraud question.
Correct.
Tease that out a little bit. Why you saw it slightly differly, or you saw it in bigger terms than they did, I think.
Yeah, my focus was just, you take Minnesota, which is land of the Vikings, right? These Scandinavian people, and now it's becoming...
You're speaking to a Carlson here. So
exactly, right? Now it's home to Somalis, and I saw the Minnesota Vikings. They put out a thank you to our Somali community or something on Twitter the other day. So for me, it was just an interesting case study of a state in the United States of America that has such generous welfare programs and is such a generous people that inevitably it attracts some of the most opportunistic, parasitic, if you will, population of people from a destabilized country in Africa that come here simply because of the benefits they'll receive upon entering. And it became a hub for these people opportunistically taking advantage of such generous people.
This is why you've become so big.
Yeah.
I would say. Because, thank you for saying that, because it is bigger than...
Minnesota thing too, though, right? It's unique to Minnesota.
Well, Maine, which has similar demographics. Sure. Overwhelmingly Northern European whites who have no idea what an idyllic place they have, who hate themselves because they've been taught to hate themselves. And so to atone for sins they didn't commit, import the most destructive parasitic populations they can find.
Sure.
And then sort of revel in the squalor because it's a kind of self-abasement that turns them on. It's sadomasochism.
Yeah.
So,
sort of white guilt, right?
100%. And there's nothing more dangerous to everybody than white guilt.
Seemingly, yeah.
It's just interesting that you saw it that way.
Yeah, that's how I saw it. Because we've also done videos in Dearborn, Michigan. Before that was, I feel like you see that every day now. Dearborn this, Dearborn that, about the sort of Muslim invasion. We did a video in Hamtramck, Michigan, which was a predominantly Polish working class town. And it eventually elected a Muslim majority in the township council. And they voted to ban the gay flag. Which for me was comedic because they basically invited these people in, they become a majority, they consolidate political power, and then vote to deny them the same rights they were afforded. So to me, it was just the most comedic story.
Or even more meta, it's like white liberalism drew these people in, and their first act is to ban white liberalism.
Exactly. Yeah. Once they achieve
one
sufficient
religion
majority.
supplants another.
Sure. Basically, we were looking for ethnic enclaves doing the same thing as Dearborn, Michigan, or Hamtramck, or Minneapolis. So I looked up Jewish ethnic enclaves on Google, only to find Curious Joel.
Let me ask you to pause right there. Thank you for explaining that. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
So you're basically interested in exploring the principle that you
exactly
that you described
it was a
minute
conversation
ago.
about the principle.
It wasn't a conversation about one. You weren't out to attack Jews or Muslims or Somalis or anyone else. You just want to say this is what happens when a country's decency is leveraged against it.
Exactly.
Right.
When generosity is exploited en masse and systematically, right? Systematic exploitation of generosity by design.
So you still believe in principles, so you must be a legacy American.
In what respect?
Well, you must be from here if you actually believe in a higher principle.
Yeah, I'm born and raised here. No. My mom's side goes way back, and yeah.
So may I ask, what kind of response did you get to the videos that you did on these ethnic enclaves in Michigan and Minnesota?
Yeah, praise and adoration.
Praise,
of course.
Oh, wow.
Right. This is a great talking point. Thank you so much for bringing this up.
Who liked them? Who praised
Republicans?
Oh, they did.
Of course.
Okay. Yeah, they loved it.
Democrats hated them. Liberal people hated them. Republicans, hoorah, keep going. Expose them all. Find even more. Expose all of these groups. Right. So I was like, okay, sure, I will. Let's do it. Let's keep going.
See, okay.
Yeah. Let's keep the fun going, Tucker.
Because you believe in universally applicable principles.
Exactly.
Not just tribal politics.
Exactly.
The thing above tribal politics, which is principle, which is what the country's founded on.
Exactly.
Right. Okay, now.
So I was like, okay, we've covered plenty of this Islamic ethnic enclaves across America. It would be interesting to find a different group of people that do this. That's extremely religious and utilizes welfare in similar ways. So I found this village called Kiryas Joel. Now, Kiryas Joel is an all-Jewish ethnic enclave in upstate New York. At one point, they were the poorest town in America, with 40% living beneath the poverty line. They had the highest fertility rates in America, having 7 to 10 plus kids. Extremely high, anomalously high rates of welfare dependency, from Medicaid to SNAP, EBT to Section 8 housing vouchers. So this is definitionally a parasitic, insulated Jewish community I found in upstate New York. So to me, that was obvious. I had an obligation almost to go there and film a video if I was filming videos in Dearborn or Hamtramck or Minneapolis.
Did you know that was not allowed?
I suspected we would unveil some hypocrisy, especially within the GOP and the larger Republican tent.
Really?
For sure. Come on.
But you suspected it.
I suspected it. But it was, to this degree, was a little bit surprising.
But at that point, it was not fully confirmed.
No, not at all. And no one had tested it yet. And I wanted to test the line a little bit. Yeah. Because you see so many of these guys on Twitter cosplaying as these hardliner, principle first guys. America first, weed out all the fraud, weed out all the welfare exploitation. And then when it comes to specific groups, those principles disappear. So for me, I was like, I know this is going to happen to some extent. To what extent, I didn't know. Let's go there and show this.
Do you think, I'm sorry, I keep pulling you off track, but this is a more amazing story than I realized.
Yeah.
And I just want to say once again, I had no idea how big you were on YouTube. The numbers show it. It's not my opinion. They're many times my numbers. So
thanks for having me.
I'm so impressed. So I just love that you're being rewarded for this.
Oh,
but
thanks.
Do you think the fact that you didn't go to college allows your mind to stay a little freer, more supple, less constrained by lies than if you had gone?
Yeah, maybe I'm a little less conditioned than the average person in my generational cohort.
Yeah.
No, I think, to be fair to my generation, Gen Z.
Yeah.
A lot of people agree with me. Gen Z is on the same boat here.
Yeah, I believe.
I think they're far more principally consistent than a lot of our political representatives, and they're all for it. I think, who's not?
Who?
A lot of these evangelical boomers, seemingly.
I've noticed.
Israel's a hard line, and anything remotely indicative of Israel or related to Israel in any capacity, including Hasidic Jews, apparently is off limits.
Jesus doesn't seem to be the hard line for them at all, which is a little surprising.
No, they'll tolerate disrespect.
And I'm talking about the leaders. Yeah. I'm not talking about the people at all. But it's some of the leaders, you could say whatever you want about.
We've done videos on corrupt Christian megachurches. We've done videos on, Pakistani Muslim rape gangs. What's interesting to note is that most Christians watching the videos we did about corrupt Christian megachurches were highly apologetic for what they viewed to be as an aberration from true Christianity.
Yes.
They were denouncing what they view as a bastardization of Christianity.
That's how I feel.
Exactly.
Right there. Yeah.
But for what we found after putting this Jewish video out is that there's almost like an immune system response of Hasidic, orthodox, secular, Jews have each other's back was what I took away from the backlash that followed that video.
It's interesting. Yeah. So tell us, first of all, what did you find?
Yeah, sure.
So Curious Joel is in New York. It's outside New York City, 40% below the poverty line, at least at one point, highest birth rate in the country.
I'll tell you what I found.
What's it like? What is it? Exactly?
It is reminiscent of a European shtetl, a Jewish village you might have seen pre-World War II. That's how they describe themselves. What I saw was a ton of Hasidic Jews walking to synagogues, praying, and then walking in a hurry, I guess, to another synagogue to pray some more and study the Talmud some more. That's basically all I saw. People praying and people living off of the teat of the welfare system in many ways.
Just to be clear, I've got no problem with people praying or following their religion. I support it. It's the living off the taxpayer part that is too much.
Yeah, I mean, to give them credit, obviously there is some level of communal support.
Yep.
Sometimes they'll rely on in-laws for some initial financial support, whatever. But largely by design, their entire lifestyle is designed to extract and exploit these welfare systems to the maximum degree. It is strategic. It is not happenstance. It is not coincidental. It is by design.
You go into the grocery store and there are endless snacks and protein bars. Paleo Valley superfood bars are, we think, the best. Most nutrition bars seem healthy, but then you read the labels and it turns out they're packed with all kinds of bizarre stuff, processed syrups, ingredients you can't pronounce. They're essentially candy, masked by marketers pretending they're healthy. I've eaten a lot of them, I would know. Paleo Valley superfood bars are different, though. Paleo Valley makes its products with real ingredients like organic fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, or no seed oils, soy, gluten, other weird additives. And you know when you finish eating one because you're not bloated and you feel good. And that is the measure. These bars are sweet, filling, genuinely good tasting. Flavors include red velvet, apple cinnamon, chocolate chip, plenty more. They're all great. If you're trying to clean up your diet but need something convenient to grab, these are a solid option. Give them a try at paleovalley.com. Use code Tucker at checkout for 20% off your first order. paleovalley.com, code Tucker, 20% off your first purchase.
This is the single biggest debate in Israel and has been for over 20 years, is that there's a huge percentage of the population that lives off the Israeli welfare system, does not serve in the military, and does not add to the economy. And if you talk to any non-religious Jew in Israel, it's like the third sentence out of their mouth is, I am angry at these people for this. So it's not just here.
For sure. And a lot of Israelis actually, they would contact me and say, this was an amazing video. We have the same issue. See, maybe that's the one thing.
Is that true?
Yeah. So that's maybe the one thing.
I totally believe that.
Yeah, it was funny. Israelis were super supportive of it. They're like, this is great. They're draining the tax system over here. And apparently there's a demographic ticking time bomb taking place over there, to your point, right? Because they have similar levels of fertility rates and don't contribute economically the same way.
No. And don't serve in the military, which in Israel is a big deal since everybody, male and female, serves. So, and they've had an endless series of wars for 30 years. So you can imagine the bitterness.
Yeah. The resentment.
Your kids are going off to risk their lives, but your neighbors aren't.
For sure.
Yeah. So
speaking of resentment, though, it's the same logic and in the same vein that the average American taxpayer grinding their nuts off right now feels when they're working a 7 to 6, right? If you account for the commute to work and back from work, they see where their tax dollars are being spent. And they don't feel as if the money they're putting in, they ever get to see coming back out to them.
No, of course not.
And how many ethnic enclaves are they funding to live this totally insulated lifestyle that doesn't benefit them? And that was really what the conversation sparked and became.
What was it like as you walked through the community? How were you received?
Unwelcoming, I would say.
Yeah.
Especially with the camera, of course. I think if I was there without the camera, not questioning anything, I would have been tolerated for sure.
For those who haven't seen it, what kind of questions did you ask?
What do you do for work? How do you afford to have 7 to 10 kids?
You asked that?
Yeah. Hey, what do you do for work? I study Torah. Okay. How do you afford 7 to 10 kids? God. And I would be like, what about the American taxpayer? And they would say, that too. So I'm like, of course, that too.
Was there any gratitude that you discerned to the American taxpayer?
For me asking these questions?
No, they say, God bless
gratitude
America.
for God. I think it was.
But not for America.
I mean, maybe there is some, sure.
You didn't hear it though.
I didn't feel it. No.
Wow. What about local politicians? They must know this, right? I mean,
for sure. They're beholden to these people though. They're beholden to the Jewish voting bloc that exists in these concentrated Jewish communities in New Jersey and New York. So we haven't established the importance of the Jewish voting bloc in states like New Jersey and New York. Obviously, local politicians are aware of this. Even Donald Trump's aware of this. He put out a tweet saying, thank you so much to Lakewood, New Jersey, the Orthodox community in Lakewood, New Jersey. There's some tweet he put out thanking them in 2024. And they're one of the most powerful voting blocs because of their consistency. They always show up and they always vote on behalf of whatever the rabbinical leadership tells them to. So if they say vote for this guy, they consistently show up on behalf of that candidate. There's no partisan loyalty. They'll shift from Democrat to Republican as long as the benefits outweigh one party over the other. So they're the perfect voting bloc. No one wants to stop their gravy train for fear of losing their votes.
So democracy has been literally subverted.
Or hijacked.
Hijacked.
Seemingly.
In exactly the same way it has been in Lewiston, Maine and Minneapolis, Minnesota by the Somalis.
Yeah, seemingly an organized group, a small organized minority can disproportionately impact everything.
Could you have these communities without welfare?
No. Actually, you could. The Jewish community would not, because they're so dedicated to studying full-time, spending so much time praying, et cetera, et cetera. Although there are precedents for that being possible, which I always bring up. The Amish community. They're self-sufficient. They're fully reliant on their own sweat and toil. It can be done.
So the Christian community pays for itself.
Exactly.
Okay, but the others don't.
Seemingly not.
So the Amish, this is a dumb question. I just assumed I knew the answer, but it sounds like you really do. The Amish are not on welfare. They're not living.
No, they are philosophically opposed to taking welfare. They do not want to take any welfare. They find it as shameful, as most people probably should, right? Because it's a safety net to reduce poverty and not a way of life, not a strategy for maintaining a lifestyle of having 7 to 10 kids when you can't afford to otherwise, I think.
Well, of course not.
Right?
Especially in a country that has no state religion, that isn't allowed to support theocracy. I mean, speaking for myself, and I think I'm reflected in the Constitution.
Yeah.
I absolutely think that Orthodox should have a right to any kind of religious practice they want, as long as you're not hurting anyone. And same with the Somali, same as the Muslims in Michigan, same as the Amish in Pennsylvania. But the idea that taxpayers would support someone else's religion, it's not allowed,
and it's
right?
even funnier for me because for some of these groups, there is outward hostility, right? You take some of these, I would argue these Orthodox Jewish groups, there is in fact hostility when we were there asking people questions, asking them what they do for a living, how they get their money, how they afford their little society. There is hostility. So for me as a taxpayer, it's like, we're going to take your money. If you question it, you're anti-Semitic and we hate you.
What was anti-Semitic about it?
The ADL said it harkened back to anti-Semitic stereotypes of them being a drain on society or something like that, when it's all statistically corroborated. I'm not pulling these out of my ass. These are welfare stats I was quoting, and then I would go to the direct source asking these people, what do you do for a living? How many kids do you have? How do you afford your kids? Are you on welfare? How is that anti-Semitic? And why do they get their own brand of their own proper nounage of racism? That never made sense to me.
I agree.
It's odd, right?
It is odd.
It's weird, yeah.
It is odd. I haven't thought too much about that, but I think you make a fair point. How is bigotry against one group different from bigotry against any group? And of course, if you believe in absolute standards, it's not. It's all the same. It's all variety is the same thing. But if you believe that only one group should be immune from criticism, then you're not against racism. Of course, you're an advocate of racism.
Sure.
Right? You're arguing a kind of supremacy.
Yeah, Jewish supremacy.
Yeah, or any kind. I mean, any kind. You know, if you can attack
in this case,
anyone but white Episcopalian men. Everyone else is fair game except me.
What other group can you not discuss, though, right?
I don't know.
You can disrespect Christianity without any flack. You can disrespect Islam legally. They might kill you for it. And seemingly with Jews, or at least some of these groups of Jews, the legal affair may begin. You might get deplatformed or pulled off some sites.
So what happened? Okay, so what happened? So you do this video in New York at Curious Joel. What kind of reception does it get?
The Americans are happy. Thank you for calling this out. The locals who live in nearby communities, thank God someone has finally come here and spoken out about this.
Oh, the locals have strong feelings about it.
Oh, they're perpetually grateful to me because no one has ever touched this because seemingly it's radioactive. If you have any political ambitions, they die overnight if you talk about this. This is a strong voting bloc. And on top of that, they're leveraging the generational guilt of the Holocaust. You're anti-Semitic if you oppose any of what they're doing. So I was a hero to the local communities that live nearby.
Just to be clear, the Holocaust was not committed by Americans. We were actually the people who ended it, I think.
You can't make this up, Tucker.
Right. No, but I just want, because history does get so distorted in real time. America did not commit the Holocaust.
Yeah, what does that have to do with me?
We lost many, many, many tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of Americans fighting against it. So actually, America is the hero in that story. So I don't know why any American would feel guilt about something that we gave the lives of our ancestors to stop. So that's just
I think that's a great point.
It is it's a weird thing.
It's a defense. It's a mechanism that's almost reflexive for a lot of these people to throw out the anti-Semitism and then the conversation's buried, right? So it's a shield to dissuade further argumentation as to why I disagree with, let's say, a Jewish group, their actions.
Right.
And it's abused, obviously, and its weight seems to no longer
I'd
exist.
heard that it was abused. Yeah, I'd heard that.
I mean, I think so. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Someone had told me that.
But for me, to clarify, I'm an equal opportunity offender, so to speak, in that
I think you've demonstrated that.
Yeah, I'll talk to any of these groups of people and have plenty of critical questions for all of them. Not just Jewish people. I didn't wake up one day and say, let's go piss off some Jews, right? It's just, this is a perfect example of an ethnic enclave that exploits the welfare system. And let's go check it out. Just like I would a Muslim group or a Christian group.
Just as you did.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, okay, so you get big numbers. The audience likes it. The neighbors are grateful for it.
Yeah.
A bunch of Israelis say, hey, we love this because we've lived it. Yeah. Where does the criticism come from?
Republican demagoguery. I think some politicians, Republican politicians, the Republican Party at large is as opposed to it.
Really?
The left can get behind it. A lot of the right can get behind it. But also a lot of the right is disgusted by it. How dare he engage in anti-Semitism? The ADL says it harkens back to age-old anti-Semitic tropes. I don't even know what to say.
That's So how did
for me, it's just laughable. You know?
Did any of the people who praised your Somali
absolutely?
Yeah. Did they attack this?
Yes.
Same people.
Yes. Yeah, I would give names, but their names are probably too irrelevant to invoke here at this table. But
you know of
certainly hypocrisy.
You know of people who praised one video exposing parasitic behavior by an ethnic enclave, but attacked the same thing when it was another enclave.
For sure.
Okay. Well, that's
and you would think even secular Jewish communities would be like, hey, thanks for pointing this out. We appreciate that, which some of them did, of course. But largely, there is a tribal mentality of, why are you attacking these poor, innocent Jews who just want to mind their own business? That's great. Go mind your own business. Not on my dime, Tucker. I pay taxes.
Oh, I agree.
Quit taking money out of my wallet. If you want to go live in the woods, do it. Work hard enough to buy your own property and go do it. I shouldn't have to subsidize your lifestyle. It's that simple.
I totally agree.
Beyond that, though, there's no beef, there's no frustration, there's no hatred. It's just
I think any honest person sees exactly the point you're making, and it's pretty hard to disagree with it.
Yeah. Any serious person.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you think this is okay, is it okay to have, I don't know, some Christian Nazi group or whatever?
Yeah, and to that point, right, so there's that all-white community that's trying to start up in the Arkansas, the Ozarks in Arkansas. They're going to get sued into oblivion.
Just for existing.
Just for violating the Fair Housing Act, right, for discriminating against non-whites. For those who don't know, it's a group in the Ozarks that's trying to build an all-white town.
Yeah.
That's illegal.
With taxed money?
No, self-funded. So the beauty of Curious Joel to me was, we're essentially going to de facto violate the Fair Housing Act, de facto segregate ourselves from secular society with secular taxpayer dollars. And if you don't like it, you're anti-Semitic, fuck you. That was my takeaway.
What's happening?
And white people can't do it. And I
think blacks tried to do it in downtown Philadelphia in the mid-'80s, and they got firebombed by the mayor.
Yeah.
Yeah. They literally got blown up with a bomb. Not that, look, whatever. I've never been for racial separatism, but I also believe in freedom of association and do whatever you want.
The conflict, right? I think actually you should be able to do that. I don't really take any problem with them segregating. That's fine. Why would you not want to live next to people that look like you, worship the same God, pray like you, raise their children the same way?
Yeah.
But why can they only do it? That's all.
Well, here's a pretty awful statistic. Over 85% of the so-called grass-fed beef sold in this country comes from other countries. It's not American. That's no good for our farmers. It's a tragedy for them. And that's why it matters to be intentional about where you buy your meat. That's why we buy our meat from Good Ranchers. Good Ranchers partners with local farmers, and ranchers deliver 100% American meat delivered right to your house. It's pasture-raised, has no antibiotics, no added hormones, nothing awful or bad for you. It's quality meat, and you can feel good about eating it and serving it to the people you love. We use Good Ranchers meat for dinners here. It's awesome. We could eat it every day and never get bored. It's like a dog eating dog food. Every time you are thrilled! We are anyway. Start your plan today, and you'll get free meat included with every order, plus $100 off your first 3 orders. Use the code Tucker to get that. Visit goodranchers.com. The code is Tucker. That's free meat with every order and $100 off your first 3 orders when you start your subscription plan this month. Or if you just want to try it out, you can get $40 off your first order with the code Tucker. GoodRanchers.com, American meat delivered to you.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So what were the consequences for you?
So immediately, obviously the sponsor pulled out of our video. We don't want to touch that. So I can talk about Muslims, Christians, pimps, prostitutes, any group you can imagine. But this was the no-no, Tucker. This was the radioactive topic.
Wait, so you had an advertiser in the video.
Typically, they do not ask me for the topic of the video. For this video,
never. I've never been asked the topic of a video.
I generally have creative flexibility to place these sponsorships I get on whatever video I please.
Yeah.
But for this one, I put out a tweet saying, have you ever heard of Curious Joel? And I broke down some of the statistics regarding their welfare use. And I'm not going to name the company, but one of the correspondents on behalf of that company saw it and wanted to clarify that it would not be about the Orthodox Jews. And then when I said, yeah, it is, they pulled out. So obviously they have the right to spend their money how they please. It's just funny. And it goes to show seemingly which groups you cannot talk about.
Well, I think that's pretty clear at this point. I have a lot of thoughts about that. The main one is, I think it's counterproductive. Yeah. Obviously, it's not good for anyone in the end. But I also think it's a violation of the core idea of America, which is...
And it leads to resentment, I think.
Big time.
For a lot of people.
Big time.
And it sort of proves their points right in the sense of, you have special privileges. No, I don't. You can't talk about us. Shut up. Okay, so you do have special privileges?
Well, I agree
with that. Do you?
No.
So after that video... so many residents from New Jersey reached out to me and said, hey, we have the same thing going on here in Lakewood, New Jersey and surrounding towns. Please come here and take a look. So Lakewood, I think, is the most populous Jewish town besides Brooklyn, New York, in the United States. Massive Orthodox Jewish community. And many of the towns have been turned over, so to speak. Non-Jewish towns have become predominantly Jewish towns in the last 2 decades, from my understanding, in the early 2000s especially. And it has been perpetrated through pretty aggressive methods, so to speak.
Really?
Yeah. So we're talking about the consolidation of political dominance from the township board to the planning board to the zoning board to the school board. And the heritage residents in these areas, their argument is they've made it so uncomfortable for us that we've either left if we've had the means to leave financially, and those who are left behind send their kids to a dismantled, looted, and pillaged public school system that's been destroyed inadvertently by the presence of these Orthodox Jews.
Well, how has it destroyed this school system?
So In New Jersey, the state funding formula for schools is a derivative of public school attendance, okay? So if I had 5,000 public school attendees, that would be multiplied by X to determine the amount of money my school gets. So what happens is when Orthodox Jewish communities come in, they overwhelm these school districts with Jewish students who go to yeshivas, right? They do not attend the public school system. Yet simultaneously, those schools have an obligation to fund private transportation, special education for these private schools. So what ends up happening is a large piece of the pie ends up getting allocated towards these private schools in the form of gender segregated busing and exorbitant costs for special education within the Jewish community.
Wait, the state pays for gender segregation?
Gender segregated busing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The state pays for that?
Correct. So that's state funded.
You can't even get states to have gender segregated bathrooms, but they're paying for gender segregated busing?
Sure. Because they argue it's a violation of their freedom to religiously express themselves. And so there's gender segregated busing at play.
What
here.
about Title IX? There's no federal law. Well, that's amazing.
Sure. Yeah, some would argue it's a violation of the Establishment Clause.
By the way, just in point of fact, I'm okay with gender segregation. I don't have a problem with it at all. In fact, I think it's good in some ways. But I just didn't know that the government could pay for it because I thought the official position of the government at every level was gender segregation is always bad, including in the John.
Yeah.
But no, it's okay when
I guess
the yeshivas do it.
Sure. Because they're a religious organization.
Okay.
Which, different conversation, but religious freedoms in this country, I think, have gone too far or have been weaponized by bad actors.
Yeah, I mean, there seems to be less religious freedom for some people, but a lot more for others.
Yeah. And this is not the only instance of this exact same behavior. The blueprint was made in East Ramapo in Muncie, New York, not too far away. Basically, Orthodox Jews came into this community of mostly black and brown, working class, poor people, bought a bunch of real estate, established their presence, voted themselves into positions of power in the school board, the zoning board, the planning board, the city council. They voted to defund like after school activities for the kids in the public schools, to increase the amount of funding for these yeshivas. And then they would consolidate the public schools that existed as the funding basically went down and the public student enrollment went down as people left. They would consolidate them, meaning they would close down some of the public schools and they would then sell them off for a discounted price to these yeshivas. So the takeaway from nearby towns...
Wait, and so they actually took over the physical plant of the buildings?
They bought the schools at discounted rates, yeah. Below market rates, arguably.
Damn.
It's brutal, right? So the lesson for nearby towns was, we don't really have any upside for these people to move in if, A, the state funding formula is designed in such a way that the quality of our kids and their public education will go down and they will elect themselves into political power and basically be aggressive and unreasonable neighbors to live by. So, yeah.
It's an amazing story.
Yeah, it's interesting.
So you get calls from people saying that this is going on. What you covered in New York is happening at even bigger scale.
Not a call, just widespread social media feedback.
Yeah,
like, hey, what you saw here, there's tons of it and more here in Lakewood. Come down and visit.
So what's Lakewood like?
Lakewood is, some would describe it as Little Jerusalem. Israel 2.0. I've never been to Israel. The climate's fundamentally different. Obviously, that's a questionable comparison. But
New Jersey is the same size as Israel, weirdly.
Funnily enough.
But I bet you the landscape in Israel is more charming.
Probably so, right?
Yeah.
It's the Holy Land, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's New Jersey, first off. It's in Ocean County. The climate's much different, but it is densely populated with, I think, 2/3 of the population is Orthodox Jews. The driving's terrible. And they run the show down there.
And you went?
I went to Lakewood. I went to Muncie, New York. I went to the nearby town of Jackson Township. Where else did we go? We went all over. Like
what kind
4
of
separate
experience
trips.
did you have?
I was the boogeyman. A lot of these people had seen the video in Curious Joel and they were afraid for me to come down to Lakewood, New Jersey. There were group chats where they would disseminate Yiddish posters basically saying, do not talk to anyone with a camera. Do not let anyone in our synagogues. Play Disney music so he gets a copyright claim on his videos. Like, I was the devil after that video in Kiryas Joel came out in other Orthodox Jewish communities. Because I also put out a tweet saying, I'm going to come down. Let me know if you have any tips. I'm coming, basically.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what happened when you got there? Did anyone talk to you?
Of course. Yeah. Despite them being told not to talk to me, a lot of Jewish people did come up to me. And their main point was the law is written in such a way that we deserve to receive these welfare benefits. We qualify legally, and therefore it's okay and good. And if you have a problem with that, go move to a different country. My position was...
Go move to a different country?
Sure. I mean, obviously not all of them thought that way. There were a few friendly encounters, but mostly it was pretty confrontational, unwelcoming. They were frustrated that I was there.
I can take it, therefore I'm justified in taking it?
Yeah, so beyond the ethics of whether or not it was a good or bad thing to do, their justification was, if the law is written in such a way, we are justified in doing it. The law was somehow supreme over what I would argue to be morals or ethics that, in my opinion, this is a bad thing to exploit or take advantage of if that's what you're doing. But for them, it's not coincidental. It's by design. It's systemic exploitation of a system they're fully aware of, all of its loopholes. They understand the law in such a way that allows them to exploit it in every degree.
I mean, I think what you're seeing is a clash of worldviews.
I think so.
So I understand both, by the way. I understand both.
Yeah.
But one is a legalistic worldview. This is the law, and we're within the bounds of the law, which is, I think, totally defensible. And the other is, well, there's a higher law having to do with your ethics,
honor,
and a greater
shame, decency.
Yes, and you see this repeatedly in the New Testament when Jesus heals on the Sabbath.
Yeah.
They're all famous scenes, but there's a particularly memorable scene where he heals a guy who's been crippled for 38 years at the pool of Bethsaida, and the guy gets up and picks up his mat and starts walking, and the Pharisees are just on him. The guy hasn't walked in 38 years, and they're like, you're holding your mat on the Sabbath. It's against the law.
Sure.
And Jesus is like, no, you're missing the point.
Yeah.
He can walk after 38 years. Like, there's a higher calling here.
Sure.
And so I'm not attacking anybody.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, I think you're kind of seeing that in
law versus ethics, morality. Almost,
I think that's right.
In my opinion, the way I view what welfare was designed for, which was to help indigents, poverty, single mom with some kids they can't afford to pay for groceries.
Or even more broadly, there are things that we're allowed to do that we don't do because we restrain ourselves.
I agree.
I can scream the F word at a grandmother. There's no law against it, but I don't because that's disgusting, right?
Yep, I think so.
You could probably get on welfare right now.
Oh, I'm sure a lot of people could and don't due to this concept of shame, which is seemingly not universal, right?
Yes.
We let all of these groups of people from all over the world, including Jewish people, right? Including, sub-Saharan Africans, whoever it may be, into the United States, because apparently we have this obligation of being a melting pot, whatever that means, however new that concept is. And we're surprised when we learn that we have different worldviews, different values, different gods, different interpretations of reality that guide our actions. Thus the divide, because the heritage residents in a city like Lakewood are saying, yeah, we know you can legally qualify, but we're tired of paying for your shit. Please stop. And they're saying, the law says I can, therefore I will. And anti-Semitism.
If you don't like it, leave.
Therefore leave.
You leave your country.
Yes. Despite their whole lifestyle being contingent on being subsidized by the welfare that is paid for by secular tax dollars, is my position. So you can't be mad at the person that funds your entire way of life. I think that's disingenuous, and that's a little ungrateful.
It's the definition of it.
Yeah.
Do local politicians, do they weigh in on this?
They didn't weigh in on it directly when I put my video out, but all local politicians caved to these guys. The voting block is too immensely valuable for anyone to shut this down, to cap the amount of benefits that they receive to 2 kids or 3 kids. No one wants to take away their gravy train because they want the votes. So the votes in exchange for them to be able to live the life however they want to please, to teach their kids however they want, to exhaust the welfare system however they please, and to not prosecute seemingly any wrongdoers. So yeah.
So this video comes out. Did you have any, I should ask, did you have any like hostile exchanges? Did you call
Oh, for sure. I mean, I want to emphasize that I had no fear of being physically harmed in these communities. I got to throw a bone their way. Unlike Minneapolis, I did fear the Somali communities, attacking me or shooting me.
For sure.
That's a real fear. Showing up to Curious Joel or Lakewood, that's not a real fear. There's no fear of physical harm, in my opinion. I walk without security there. That's not a real concern.
Whereas you felt threatened in the Somali neighborhood.
Sure, yeah. I mean, or some of these crime-ridden, predominantly black cities, and let's say Jackson, Mississippi, or Kensington, Philadelphia.
Yeah,
I might fear I might get shot. That's not a concern here. So I'm not physically fearful, but we were intimidated by the local police and, most interestingly, their own internal police. They have this thing called Shamrim. It's a volunteer community patrol, but they de facto function is law enforcement within the community. So we had this Shamrim volunteer police equivalent basically show up to us and say, I'm going to let everyone know that they don't have to answer your questions and we're going to follow you. So keep in mind that these people drive cars with red and blue lights. They look like undercover police vehicles. How is that legal? I don't think it is, Tucker, but they do it. I'm not a lawyer, of course, but they're blasting through red lights with what appear to be undercover police cars. And this is a volunteer civilian patrol squad. Now, keep in mind, they receive some element of federal funds, township funds. So my tax dollars still somehow end up funding Shamrim, a volunteer police squad in New Jersey. How is that even possible?
The religious police.
Exactly. Essentially,
like in Saudi Arabia or Iran.
So imagine if a Muslim group did that.
I'd be opposed. Outraged from me too.
Sure.
Yeah.
And technically, they're a volunteer civilian patrol squad, but they function as an intimidating force to stop you from doing things, to sort of enforce the law. And oftentimes, they've been accused of breaching what they can actually do legally, whether it be like, I think they beat some gay black guy to blindness once in like Crown Heights. There have been several instances of people basically saying, yo, they're not cops. Why are they acting like cops?
They ran over a kid in Crown Heights in the 80s and caused one of the biggest riots in New York.
Oh, is this
the Crown Heights riots? Yeah.
Where Hot Sola, their EMS, their volunteer EMS, they didn't take the kid, but they took the Jewish guy, right?
That's
and the
correct.
Kid died?
That's correct. Well, that was the claim. I mean, I wasn't there. And
yeah.
No, I wasn't.
I wasn't there either.
It's New York. And you never know. And everyone lies about everything. And ethnic conflict is incredibly hard to decipher. Because as soon as it gets tribal, everyone lies on behalf of the tribe, whatever the tribe. It's not just the Orthodox, it's the black people. Any tribe does this. So I don't really know what happened, of course. But
I don't know.
That was certainly the account that history has recorded. And
why wouldn't they have an in-group preferential bias, right?
Well, they do.
Any person does, obviously.
Whites don't.
With the exception of like post-George Floyd, I'm pretty sure they ran a study where whites were less inclined to shoot a black guy.
Of course, much less.
Obviously, right? Their whole life is going to get torn to shreds.
Right, and whites have just had it beaten out of them. And even in a country that fought the Nazis, everyone somehow feels responsible for the Nazis. But anyway, and there may be other reasons, but the bottom line is, you're right.
Yes, we had rabbis telling us we couldn't be in the parking lot for the Kosher West supermarket. Get out of here. People whispering in each other's ears, don't talk to him. So there's seemingly this upper management rabbinical class that's telling the plebs to not talk to this guy. He's trouble. So there would be a lot of people excited to come up to me, actually, and tell a joke. Like, I got a funny joke for you. And I was like, all right, great. We'll show some positives. Guy comes up, don't talk to him. He says, do you know how much money we make? That was his new response. I'm like, come on, man. Just show your humanity. Talk to me. I'm here to talk. I'm not a scary guy. We're not rolling with 10 security guards. It's me and like a cameraman or two in the distance. I'm walking alone for the most part. And I have a group of 10 to 20 of these Orthodox Jews arguing with me as to how they're entitled to welfare, how it was seemingly promised to them. Oh, man. But so they had their own internal police force. The cops themselves were pulling me over without probable cause. I would say, hey, officer, I know you're doing your job. Why am I being pulled over? They would say, you're a suspicious person. I would say, what's suspicious about me? You were filming. Okay, we were filming on the sidewalk. Give me your IDs. They can't articulate probable cause. We suspect that one of the high-ranking local officials called the police and told them to give us a hard time. That's speculative. I don't know.
What country is this again?
The United States of America.
Okay. Yeah.
It's easy to forget though, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was hostile. It was unwelcoming. They thought I was there to do a hit piece. I was there to talk to them. And
you're allowed to do a hit piece if you want in your own country.
Sure. Yeah. And I am allowed to do that. And part of my position was, first of all, it wasn't a hit piece. It was fair, in my opinion. But B, I don't have to show up to show the positive sides of whatever community. That's for Joe Schmo to do. I'm here to jump into the heart of darkness and ask the hard questions. And if people get pissed off, then so be it.
It's not your problem.
That's not my prerogative. I want to do the fun, hard stuff, which is asking the questions that may piss off a few people.
So did you get the same picture you got at Curious Joel, that this is a community supported by welfare?
The economics are a little bit different. They're a little more well-off financially. But basically at any given time, you can expect half of the population that's 16 and up to be unemployed.
Half?
Half. So keep in mind, though, Tucker, that in a place like Curious Joel, I think the median age is less than 16 years old. So what that really means is half the population is children and half of the adult population is unemployed and not seeking employment. Whether it be religious study, child rearing for the women, they have no intention of getting a job and financially contributing. So
how'd that video do?
That one went nuclear. Republicans were pissed.
They were?
Good faith Republicans, in my opinion, drew comparisons to the Somali situation and said, what's the difference between the Jews here using the welfare in systematically exploitative ways and the Somalis? Like, what's the difference, basically? Bad faith Republicans, hypocritical Republicans were saying, they're using the system as intended. They don't cause any violent crime. Leave them alone, essentially. You're not allowed to talk about
Why don't they leave us alone?
Right? As a taxpayer.
Yeah.
Go fund it yourself and no one would have an issue. And that's really the crux
of it. I support it.
Sure.
I like eccentric, self-sufficient religious communities. I don't want to bother any one of them.
Sure. But part of the secondary argument is their intrusion into the community, and the words I used were invasion, has led to the inadvertent destruction of the public school system for the secular or Goyim population, the non-Jewish population in these towns. Basically, as more Jews move in, it is unavoidable that your public school quality will go to shit. Your kids will have a lesser quality of education. So it's either get out now while you can, sell your house to the Orthodox Jews moving in, or be the last one holding the bag as your town goes to shit.
Oh, man, that's upsetting.
Kind of, right?
So this video goes bonkers on the internet.
Yeah, so within, I think, less than 24 hours, my Patreon is deleted mysteriously.
What's Patreon?
Patreon is a sort of a crowdfunding website that allows you to directly raise money from your viewers or fans or whatever, where you can say, hey, you can get access to these videos for $5 a month. So a large portion of our independence was from this website where we had people subscribe to our Patreon. It's just a website that allows you to collect money on a subscription or routine basis. Less than 24 hours after releasing this video, my Patreon is deleted, gone, without warning.
Why?
They cited some BS. They basically, the way the terms of service is written is in such a manner that they can take you down.
But that's your business.
That's my business, right? Obviously, it's their business. It is what it is. I was naive.
But this is the engine of your business, right?
Yeah, a large part of how we're funded.
It's
really just a middleman that allows me to collect money.
Was it a mistake?
No, absolutely not.
They didn't
I've not been
reinstate
reinstated since.
Did they ever explain?
No. They cited, I think it was for bullying or something like that.
Bullying.
And I think they might have selected a video that they could easily argue was the case in their eyes in such a way that their terms of service is written. But no, we were deplatformed basically overnight from Patreon.
But you'd done controversial videos that could be seen as controversial before, correct?
We've done videos that could easily be seen. If that is your parameter for hate or bullying, then we've bullied everyone.
Give me an example.
We're the biggest bullies. We've critiqued corrupt mega pastors like Benny Hinn. I ran up on the guy's stage and said he's a snake oil salesman. I got tackled.
Wow.
We've dissected
Benny Hinn.
Benny Hinn.
He was a friend of Paula White's, I think.
Okay.
Paula White,
he's
head
OG.
Christian Zionist in the administration. Yeah. Wow. You didn't get pulled off.
No.
So you actually kind of hassled Benny Hinn, like full blown.
Yeah, we interrupted his service.
Whoa.
I jumped on stage.
Did you do anything like that in a synagogue in Lakewood or Curious
we just walked into synagogues and talked.
You didn't interrupt the cantor or anything?
No, I didn't do any dramatic.
So you're way tougher on the Christian preacher than you were on the Orthodox.
Yeah, if you think of it like that way, not by design necessarily, but to be fair, absolutely. Nothing happened.
No problem.
No problem.
Oh. What else? What other kind of videos might have been read as bullying?
If I'm a bully, then we've bullied pedophiles. Pat myself on the back for that one. It's not so much bullying. We've just critiqued and asked critical questions to every group.
Yeah. And never...
Muslims, Christians, pimps, prostitutes, criminal gangsters, murderers, whoever, Tucker. Everyone.
And did Patreon ever...
Black supremacists, white supremacists. No issue on Patreon.
What's interesting is it used to be, not that long ago, back in George Floyd times, that
George Floyd, we had a video on George Floyd.
Oh, did you? Literally?
Yeah.
But there was a period where you couldn't say anything about Black Lives Matter, for example.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I grew up in those times.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's gone, apparently. It doesn't matter.
I guess
say whatever you want. Yeah. This is the new BLM.
This is the new meta, yeah. The new untouchable group is seemingly... it seems to be Jews at large, unrelated to how they feel about Israel and what's going on in the Middle East, and just that's an untouchable group. Are you familiar with the proposed anti-Semitism protection laws in Florida? I'm not a lawyer. I don't have an encyclopedic breakdown of what it is, but basically, laws that are designed in such a manner that if you criticize basically exactly what I found in Curious Joel, that would be criminal.
Criminal?
I think so. That if you accuse a Jewish person of having dual loyalty or them causing problems in the Middle East or whatever it is, there's like 12 different bullet points that's amend your ability to freely discuss what's going on in the Middle East or here in the United States of America. Which is funny to me because there are, in fact, people who do have dual loyalty.
Over that. I mean, you're not allowed to tell Americans what they have to believe, period.
I think so.
And if you back up your demand with guns using our government to prevent us from saying what we think is true, then that's grounds for...
I would agree, but who's going to do anything
for a revolution? We had a revolution over something smaller than that, so...
Yeah, but who's going to go out with guns and fight back at this point? You have the surveillance state. You're going to get arrested immediately. Like, is revolution really?
If they can make people take the vax, then probably they can make them do it.
We failed the compliance.
No, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
No, it's right. It's just that you would think that people would hold on to their core freedom, which is the right to say what you think is true, period.
You would think a lot of things, Tucker.
No, I know. So... Patreon, that's crazy. So you lost an advertiser and
overnight, and that money, the amount of money that was allocated for me to receive, I think on a monthly basis, just disappeared, refunded to my supporters.
Seriously?
Yeah, but luckily, we're big enough to where we took it like a champ. It is what it is. Fuck them, basically.
Yeah.
We made our own website. We fully host that, and then I got banned from the website servers, not once but twice.
What?
Yeah, I couldn't host my website for, what was it, hate speech or something along those lines.
Seriously?
Seriously,
because of those videos?
I guess. I mean, there's no specification as to which video, just generally. I'm a propagator of hate speech.
The web host. That's just
the web host.
Whoever owns the servers.
Exactly, just the servers. So Hertzner and Volter took me off. Yeah.
That's
crazy,
wild.
right? It's just something you never would have thought of.
Did you think of it ahead of time?
No, absolutely not. That's why I made the website in the first place. I was like, I'll just make my own. And then we got taken off the hosting. Yeah.
Did they explain it?
Yeah, they cited like banning circumvention as basically I circumvented a previous ban from another platform, which in this case would be Patreon, I guess. And then for hate speech or something along those lines.
How long did this take to happen?
I think maybe it lasted a week for the first one, maybe a week again, maybe a week and a half.
So immediately, Patreon.
Pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Oh, Patreon within 24 hours from what I remember. And then about a week on one website and then about another week. 1 week on one website server and then another week.
And there's no appeal or argument or anything.
No, we're kicking you off. You're out of here, buddy.
Did you ever hear from them again? Did they reinstate you? Anybody?
No, reinstated by none. It's a joke. Yeah.
So what did you do?
I mean, I have a new web host server right now, but
are you worried about YouTube?
I feel as if YouTube's doing an okay job at
they certainly
actually moderating, right? They're letting us have this conversation.
Yes.
Those videos have 9 million views almost. To me, that's I got to give them kudos. They let
I spent many years attacking YouTube, and maybe I will again.
Yeah.
But I got fired almost exactly 3 years ago, and YouTube has been a stalwart partner.
Yeah.
I never thought I would say that. I wouldn't lie about it. It's not like I don't owe them money.
Sure.
I could exist without them, but I just have to be, I think you're in the same position.
I would say largely I could not exist without them, but they've treated me with fairness. So
that's kind of shocking.
it is. I know.
If you get to the point where you're sitting here complimenting Google for their commitment to free speech, things are
Things are getting bad, right?
No, but we should be grateful for our blessings.
Yeah.
And so far, YouTube has been a blessing. I can't believe I'm saying that.
I know.
It's just
Times
a fact.
Are changing.
It's just a fact. I don't know what to say. I feel like a sellout, but it's just true. So, wow. So we didn't, in the end, you replaced the income? How?
Yes. Yeah.
How do you do that?
People will just rally behind the cause of why would you not allow this guy to have an account?
I couldn't. I feel like sending you money just listening to this. But I mean, how do you do that? So Patreon is the dominant service for this, correct?
I used AI to code a new website, and then we hosted it on a web host server.
You made your own?
It's made my own, yeah. Like the next day at like 2 a.m, I was just clacking away on.
No way.
I swear, yeah, that's the story.
You built your own Patreon?
I don't think it's the prettiest website, Tucker, but yeah, we built a Patreon clone, basically, yeah.
In 24 hours?
No, maybe a couple days.
That's incredible.
Yeah,
and it actually
AI,
works?
I guess for that much at least, yeah, it works. Yeah.
Like process.
Surprisingly, it's not that sophisticated to host a video.
No, I guess that's right.
Yeah, right. It's not a complicated product.
So you have survived.
We've survived and thrived. Yeah.
What are the lessons you're drawing from this?
Seemingly there are a lot of powerful Jewish people who own significant media enterprises, websites that seem to bend the knee, at least to what they view to be anti-Semitic dialogue.
What's interesting, though, is I don't know a lot about it. I'll just be totally blunt.
Yeah.
I've always liked the Orthodox just on principle and I loved them during COVID because they wouldn't stop their weddings.
Yeah, they threw a middle finger.
I love that. I was constantly, from my heart, complimenting the...
I think they're great if they did it on their own dime. That's
totally
really what it comes
agree.
back
I didn't even know about
they're
this
nice people. If I wasn't there with the camera asking critical questions, they're nice enough
but
people.
But what's interesting is every time I've ever complimented the Orthodox, and I like their style, like the beaver hats and all that. Cool, I like all that stuff. And
the garb is badass.
The people who've pushed back against me are secular Jews. Like there's always been in Israel, as noted, there's terrible tension. But here also, I've had a lot of friends who are basically secular Jewish express real hostility toward the Orthodox.
In what respect?
You know, they don't like them. I mean, I've noticed that my whole life, just having a lot of secular Jewish friends. Whenever I'm like, I was in Borough Park, Brooklyn once.
Okay.
And I came for a story and years ago, 30 years, and I came back to my newsroom and I was like, I like those guys. And they were all the people I know who are secular Jews who were like, they're disgusting, they're horrible. Like there was tension between those two groups. That's what I've always noticed. I'm hardly an expert. I'm an Episcopalian, but I've seen this.
Yeah, what was fascinating
it's kind of weird that
is that despite their internal differences, they do show up for each other, it seems like.
Apparently.
I think so, because I had a lot of secular Jews frustrated and pissed off that we put on
Really?
these videos. Yeah. The Israelis kind of loved it, though, it seems like.
Right, of course.
They're like, thank you for calling this out. We have the same thing here in Israel. They won't enlist. Yeah.
Whatever you think about the Israelis, I've known a bunch of them I liked personally, but they have fewer hangups about this kind of stuff. Yeah. That they're much more direct. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're straightforward people. So what is this going to change how you progress?
Hell no. No, I mean, this was the most radioactive thing we could have done. At this point, no bars held. I mean, we'll continue to critically show up with the same critical lens we would any other group, right?
Did it affect any friendships?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Okay, good.
Yeah, that's good, right?
That's a true loss. Yeah, if that happens to you, that's a real.
That would be sad, but ultimately, I would see that as their loss because, come on, we're on a mission here to hold everyone accountable to the same standards and
to the same standards.
That's
exactly
the thing that
right.
breaks our friendship. Then, come on, get out of here.
I agree. Yeah. I agree with that. Do you worry that if this can happen to you? I didn't realize this stuff was still happening. I thought Trump was going to fix all this stuff. I thought this was like a relic of the Biden years, but
for sure. I'll give you an example. There was a guy who made a similar video, almost a brand new channel, maybe like 2,000 subscribers on YouTube, a very small channel in YouTube metrics. He put out a video there in Lakewood about a week or two before I think we finished ours, and he got dogpiled by the Orthodox Jewish community. They mass disliked it. And ultimately, algorithmically killed the video. They aborted the video before its inception, so to speak. It never got to take off. So my takeaway was, if we were not the size we were on YouTube, I don't think we could comfortably even talk about a lot of these things. We have the track record for treating everyone equally, in my opinion. We have the size to sort of bully this into conversation was my takeaway.
Interesting.
Yeah.
For people who don't know what you mean about dogpiling a video out of existence, can you just explain the mechanics?
Yeah, I mean, this is somewhat speculative on my end, but I think there's data out there that suggests that when a video from the get-go is mass disliked, for instance, if you had 10,000 people click this video, dislike it, and watch it for 1 second, the algorithm would disincentivize the proliferation of this video to new viewers. So you have a guy with 100 subscribers who puts out a video critical of a group like, let's say, the Orthodox Jews, and it gets 10,000 dislikes, and they watch it for 5 seconds and leave a negative comment. YouTube's going to see that as this video does not resonate with the initial sample size, and we will not continue to share this video. So his video will never get any traction because of that initial abortion of the video, so to speak.
But you've reached a scale where that doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
Has it hurt your business?
Yes. I think so.
Yeah.
Sponsors won't touch topics like that. We've had sponsors even ask to pull out sponsorships from videos we filmed 3 years ago that have nothing to do with these topics. We filmed a video in a cancer belt in Louisiana about companies like, what's an example? Some of these pesticide companies that, there's the big one. Monsanto, I think, yeah. In Louisiana, a bunch of people getting cancer way earlier than they should due to their exposure to these toxic chemicals. Videos totally unrelated to this Orthodox Jewish topic. They've asked to get pulled out from those videos. So I've cut them out of the videos on YouTube retroactively, 3-year-old videos, because of, I guess, the frustration of what this video represents. I don't know. There's no clarity beyond, take this out. We have a legal clause that allows us to.
You said you grew up during George Floyd. Yeah. Obviously, you did. You're 26.
Yeah.
So that was 6 years ago.
Yep.
So you were just busy dropping out of college at that point.
Yeah, I was actually in Austin when the riots happened and people were throwing Molotov cocktails through some bars downtown. I was watching the chaos unfold in downtown Austin. People were blowing up cars. I was like, what the hell is going on here? And I was pretty politically illiterate back then. I would argue I still am now. And I didn't even fully understand what was happening. I was like, why is Austin rioting? What does this have to do with Austin, Texas? Like, why is everyone chimping out here?
I still don't know.
I was like, wait, why did they get the pass to blow up a car? And why did the cops just watch it happen? What does Austin have to do with Minneapolis, right? It just didn't make any sense. And when that happened, this was also during the COVID nonsense, the lockdown restrictions, all that fun stuff. And I was like, screw this, I'm going back to Modesto. I was like, I'm out of here. I broke the lease prematurely and just left. I was like, I'm not dealing with this. So yeah.
It's just, so if you're 26, I mean, your whole like adult life has been.
Yeah, like Me Too, George Floyd, what else?
It's been one witch hunt after another. It's just been pure identity politics from the minute you left high school.
Yeah. There is no world that I can recall without this identity politics, right? There is no non-tribal politics that I. But
you belong to the only group that's not allowed to have a tribe, so that must be very strange for you.
Yes, yeah. I don't know what to make of it. I think
I don't either.
I can't conceive of a world where this was not the case, and I imagine you grew up in a time where most people looked the same for the most part.
Yeah,
they worshiped the same God.
They did,
and they wanted what was best for the economy. Like they wanted national security and a thriving economy.
And I think because it was overwhelmingly white and Christian, the country that I grew up in, the Christian whites really went out of their way to make non-Christian whites feel comfortable.
Yeah.
That was a huge emphasis. There are some people who aren't like us, and we need to do whatever we can to de-emphasize the differences and to make them feel included. That whole worldview, I think, is dying as the group that did it becomes a minority. But there was no sense in which, discrimination was acceptable at all. Even in private, people didn't ever say, damn those Jews or damn those blacks. Like I never heard one person talk like that ever.
And now that's pretty mainstream.
Now they're like, people say, I don't believe you. You're lying. I don't care what you think. I was there. And nobody ever talked that way. Ever.
And even as a kid, maybe the earliest I can remember, maybe in elementary school, like there truly might have been a colorblind element to life, right? And then beyond high school for me, though, everything's been this identity politics.
How do you think this ends?
Balkanization of America, for sure, right? We're already seeing it.
Yeah.
If you can afford to, you'll insulate yourself from like crime-ridden inner cities. And
that's why you're in Bozeman or wherever. That's why Bozeman all of a sudden tripled in value, right?
Yeah, absolutely. If you have the money, you'll leave these areas that are becoming crime-ridden shitholes. And if you don't, you'll be left behind as seemingly these activist judges release the same repeat offenders, these murderous people who are, I guess, too mentally insane to be institutionalized, but mentally sane enough to be let back on the streets.
Well, you can see why there are probably whites who are getting a little paranoid. If you're the only non-protected group and every other group thinks as a group except you are not allowed to think as a group, and a lot of groups hate you, but there's no one to defend you, then, I mean, you can see why Elon Musk recently tweeted, we're moving towards South Africa and the whites are screwed. You can see why.
It's a great analogy, right?
Do people feel that way?
Go visit a shithole city like Jackson, Mississippi. Yeah. That's
I spent a summer in Jackson in the late 80s.
Depends on where you're, in the late 80s.
In a black neighborhood. Yeah. And it was great. And the black people were super nice and there was no crime aimed at me. I think things have changed. That's kind of the point I'm making.
Yeah. I can't remember that world.
I was in Jackson, Mississippi in the summer of 1989 in a black neighborhood for like 3 weeks. And I went to the 7-Eleven at night to buy cigarettes and call my girlfriend on the payphone. Yeah. And not one person bothered me. And I was the only pale face in the zip code. So like that did exist. I was there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you'd be unwise to show up to Detroit or Philadelphia or Jackson, Mississippi. And what gets rich too, Tucker, is a lot of people make it a red, blue state issue.
No.
I mean, there are some fucked up cities all across America that deal with the same issues.
I've known,
and it's not on the lines of red or blue, Democrat, Republican.
No.
It exists all over. So I don't know. I think if you the American dream right now is seemingly to make enough money to insulate yourself from the chaos unfolding in major cities, to get out of the major city, to go buy a nice house in the suburbs, and to be left alone. That seems to be the modern American dream. And for a lot of people coming to the U.S., it seems to be to make as much money as possible, send as much as you can back home, and then show up to a mega mansion in Bengaluru, India, after you're done exploiting the United States. That's what it seems like the dream is for a lot of these people coming here. So yeah.
So that leaves one group totally unprotected.
Seemingly white people, right?
Yeah.
By every measure.
So I have noticed and of course I don't know what's coming, but I've noticed concern bordering on paranoia among people I've been talking to, pretty moderate, normal, Bush, Romney, McCain, now Trump voters, just Republicans, not, nothing crazy, not a white supremacist among them at all. It's like normal whites who are like, I think we're going to get necklaced at some point.
I think that group's probably least likely to hold any in-group racial preference, right?
These are not people who've ever thought of themselves as white at all. Right. These are not people who've they're not from Alpena, Arkansas. No. These are people from like Long Beach.
That's what I'm saying. They're those least likely to
totally
hold any, whites don't stick together in their eyes, right?
It's never occurred to them.
They've never had the need to.
Right. But those people, at least I've just noticed this in the past couple of months, are like, man, we're in trouble.
That's interesting.
Have you heard anyone say that?
I only speak to, I feel like, Gen Z,
how do they feel?
Gen Z feels hopeless, demoralized, without opportunity. The college degree is seemingly useless. The bachelor's degree means nothing. They have to compete with a globalized labor force. There's human quantitative easing at play where we're ensuring infinite jobs to compete against our college graduates. Yet Trump's out there saying our college graduates are lazy and incompetent and not sufficient to fill these jobs despite us holding the best universities on the planet.
Oh, you guys noticed when he said that?
Yeah, right? And that's such a slap in the face of what's the point? What are we even voting for, right? Like, that's the question. Who represents my generation's interests? Someone will have to. Otherwise, that energy has to be funneled somewhere.
So Trump did say something like that.
I think something along those exact lines, yeah.
And people in your generation heard it. They caught that.
Well, yeah, these are the same people who don't have a job several years out of college, who can't get a job with their degree, who are competing with, infinite H-1B Indians, these guys who have 20 years experience from India who are taking their job, and we're using these H-1Bs as a wage suppression mechanism. Like, why are we not paying these H-1Bs above market rate if they're such rare, irreplaceable talent, right? It seems to only be a wage suppression mechanism. So our generation's getting replaced by seemingly foreigners.
Not seemingly, actual.
Literally, enclaves of foreigners. They know the game, though. They understand that politics is zero sum. They need to elect their own, protect their own interests. And that's what I think my generation is maybe waking up to. And maybe something that your generation has had the good fortune of not having to spend as much time as.
Completely different country. Yeah. Completely different. And I wouldn't be in touch with it if I didn't have so many children and so many employees and, and other reasons. But in general, I think I'm more aware of it, but still not anywhere near as aware of it as you would be, since I'm not having
like identity politics was like gay and woke for the longest time until the white guy in his 20s was forced to confront himself with either we develop some in-group racial preference, or we're going to go extinct, I think.
What's just so interesting is that I've noticed that this administration, which I think was elected to end identity politics, is engaged in the most aggressive identity politics, but only on behalf of 2% of the population. And so every single tweet from every person I know in the administration's like, Harvard's real problem is that it's discriminating against Jews. Meanwhile, it's like 20% Jewish with a Jewish president. And the one group that is provably unrepresented is high SAT scoring, high IQ Christian white kids. And not only are they not ignoring that, but they're making a mockery of it and pointing their finger at that exact same group and accusing them of the sin, and it is a sin, of anti-Semitism. And it's like, are you begging for revolution? Is that what you want? It's mocking people who are being destroyed for who they are. And you know that that's true, and you're ignoring it on purpose on behalf of people who whatever. Anyway,
there's not a talent deficiency within this ethnic group.
It's almost too much, though. It's a kind of humiliation that I don't understand why you would ever do that to somebody.
Yeah, so you can't be surprised when there's an epidemic of incels and hopeless young men who are opting out of the dating market, who are opting out of eventually you give up, I'm sure, if you apply to 10,000 jobs and you're algorithmically filtered out of consideration for a job.
I don't think there's been any attempt to fix any of that.
I don't think so.
At all.
I think the answer we've been given is, you're not talented enough, you're lazy, we don't need you, here's an Indian, seemingly.
And we're going to sue Harvard for discriminating against Jews.
And the real problem is not the rapists, pedophiles in power. It's Harvard discriminating against Jews. Give me a break. Like Pam Bondi, she tweeted that out. I was like, come on, Pam.
So
Lock in, Pam. Let's focus here, Pam.
No, I think this isn't. It's not just negligence. It's hate. It's hate. Obviously, it's hate. So, but where does that leave the group that you're talking about, which voted for Trump, by the way, overwhelmingly?
Bag holders.
Yeah. So, but what? And then Nick Fuentes is only about Fuentes, but at some point, there's going to be someone who is not just about himself, who actually wants to build a political movement that is way more radical than the Republican Party, and that person is going to be huge among your generation. Is that a fair?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't know the full political belief of. I don't know all the beliefs, Fuentes has, for example, but I think he's right about that young men are disaffected.
I'm not attacking Fuentes. I'm just saying like Fuentes is only about Fuentes or whatever.
I mean, I don't know his ambition.
Is ultimately he talks about
he's
himself.
He's an unavoidable,
But he makes points that are true.
Absolutely.
A lot of them.
For sure.
And he is being...
and I think it's like that ring true for a non-radical or someone who is...
They ring true for me. That's why I interviewed him.
Yeah,
I don't agree with a lot of it. I told him I didn't. But in general, his critique that the whites are shafted...
For sure.
And that this Israel relationship is really sick.
And that everyone basically that voted for Trump is seemingly not getting anything to ask for.
Got it. I agree with all of that. So that's all real. Yeah. My only point is people look at Fuentes and they're like, oh, you're the scariest thing that could happen.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
That's my point.
I don't know where it goes, right? The energy has to go somewhere, right? This is like Newton's, I don't know, second law, third law. I only went to high school. You tell me, Tucker. The energy must be diverted elsewhere. And a lot of young men are pissed off. I think for a lot of young men, though, they will just hibernate and jerk off and decay in their basements and their parents' homes. That is reality. There will be a eugenics effect. White men getting litigated or filtered out of participation in society. There will be an extinction event for sure. That's inevitable, right? But some of them might try to do something a bit more bold and revolutionary, maybe. But how does something like that even come into existence?
I wish I knew.
With the surveillance state and can you even... Is the democracy the means by which my generation uplifts their quality of life? Is that a possibility? Because the Republicans clearly don't care. The Democrats don't care. Is there a third-party alternative? What does that look like? I'm not sure. But the two current options are insufficient.
You're making me emotional.
Really?
What you're saying is true.
Yeah. And I'm like, I think of myself as a pretty reasonable guy, right? Like I was politically illiterate in many ways. I didn't think about this stuff. I was making goofy YouTube videos in my early 20s, from 18, 19, 20, 21. It was only until I was about 22 years old till I even realized all of this stuff was going on. I didn't even think really about, the George Floyd stuff that much. But now it's unavoidable. People say, why are you making everything so political? They'll talk to their neighbors or their family members. Why is everything so political? And now it's unavoidable. You have to consider the reality and the consequences of how your everyday life is being affected by these things. So unfortunately, everyday people have a political opinion on everything right now. And I think that's a tragedy more than a blessing.
It's not a win. It's not a win at all. Well, I'm subscribing to you. So thank you.
Yeah.
Tucker, that was awesome.
Yeah.
I really thank you for spending all this time.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate it.
For sure.